Welcome, welcome, welcome to On the Offense, where we talk about something in the news that is somehow relevant to marketing and communications. Sometimes it is directly relevant to marketing and communications, sometimes indirectly so. And I suppose, Jeff, this is probably indirectly related to marketing communications, but
Yeah, but
it,
more direct than indirect. I
yeah,
mean, they can play a much bigger role than they do right now. And that's one of the things we want to talk about with regard to women.
yeah. So,
And by the way, John, happy birthday. On the day that we're recording this is John's birthday. So you've officially caught up to me.
I have officially caught up to you. We are now both 33 years of age,
Yep.
and,
Yep.
which means, Sonya, that I was zero when I met you because I met you 33 years ago, which we'll talk about in a minute. So, all right, my screen is playing games with me. Yes. So we are recording this. Yes, my birthday is in March. We will also put this out in March. And March of this year, as it is every year, is Women's History Month. And so and the purpose of that is essentially, I believe, to celebrate women. And we are certainly doing that here in this podcast. We are celebrating the smart, capable, and accomplished women in our lives. Two of them are on your screen. A third of them is not on your screen, but is here. Gelman, say hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Gilman.
Happy Women's Month.
I like that it was saying to us, like we didn't just say it, sing it. I like it.
She's a singer. Yeah, you should see her sing in public. It's amazing, actually. But yeah, we are celebrating smart, capable, and accomplished women during Women's History Month, and we're celebrating two of them here as our guests. So Sonya Grigoruk and Melanie Gonzalez, thank you both for joining us. And these are people who we have known for a while, but they are also people that are currently in our network, in the Clients First Network. So if you go to our website, which we redid a couple of months ago, we actually have a page that lists chosen members of our network. We probably have, Jeff, 15, 16, which is about a third. Yeah, which is about a third of the number of people we have in our network.
Right.
And it kind of worked out that those were the ones that we featured. And Sonya and Melanie are featured on our page. We encourage you to click on their names to find out more about who they are and what they do. They are both extremely talented, and that's why they're here. So welcome, welcome. Why don't we just do quick introductions, and then we'll turn it over to Jeff, and we'll go from there. The only lead in I'll offer is, and maybe Sonya will start with you, is I've known Sonya for 33 years. We met at Hill and Knowlton in Los Angeles in 1993. I think.
Oh boy.
I think that was 33 years ago. So Sonya is an ex-colleague of mine. And Melanie Gonzalez is also an ex-colleague of mine from Unisys. Now, I got there in 2016. Melanie, what year did you get there?
I don't 2019?
think. Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't. Yeah, so that sounds about right. And they're both great to work with. They're real pros, but they're also just cool, fun people. So Sonya, why don't we start with you, a quick intro, and then we'll go to Melanie, and then Jeff will circle over to you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us, John and Jeff. It's so good to be here with you. And John, happy birthday to you. And so, yeah, quick intro. I was browsing through the podcast and I came across Tom Mattia in I think your podcast you did a while ago, and that brought back many memories of Hill and Knowlton from many years ago. Yeah. So that's where we met. You were working on the California Avocado Commission, and I came on board to work with Sony ImageSoft. And if you remember, they were about to launch Project X way back when, which turned out to be the Sony PlayStation. So yeah, dating myself. But yeah, so Hill and Knowlton was a great place to start out as a junior associate, and then moved on to work with Disney Interactive Entertainment, bounced around a couple of the .com PR agencies throughout my career, ended up working with the wonderful company for some 10 years. as a senior global PR director. And part of my role was to not only start the nutrition practice for Wonderful Pistachios, and which is now across all brands. And then also I launched their global public relations. And at one point, I was running 9 PR agencies across Europe, Dubai, Asia, Latin America, and US. So that was a really fun role. I got to work with some amazing people, some amazing brands, met a really great network of people. And then from there, launched my own consultancy practice. And I've been on my own for 10 years. And I work with primarily health and wellness, consumer technology clients, and True Niagen are some of the brands. I worked with GT's Kombucha, and I've also worked with an interesting company at the start of the pandemic that did work from home wellness tools. So I'm using one now. It's actually a laptop riser. So fascinating. Yeah, it's really interesting. So I can't believe it's been 30 years already.
You're still in LA,
Yeah.
I believe, right? So I'll just call this to your attention. Jeff or I, we trade off. One of us does an executive, what we like to call an executive thought piece and we post to LinkedIn first week of every month. And the first one we did this year was my turn in January. And I believe the headline was LA will be back, period, again, period. It's kind of a love letter to LA because in the wake of the fires from last year.
Right.
And I posted it on the 1-year anniversary of when the fires began.
Oh boy.
And it was kind of a salute to my hometown, referred to some past episodes that I was in the middle of there, the LA riots.
There too.
Earthridge earthquake, which occurred while we were working together at H&K. And I was just saying that, this is just a resilient town. It will be back. It's tough right now. And I know lots of people, as I'm sure you do, that lost their homes or their parents lost their homes or whatever. But I encourage you to take a read through that. I also used it frankly, as a way to point out that we are hoping to build our business there. And one of the ways that we do that is through people like you, by having people in our network that are on the ground there. So I'm looking forward to working with you and others to build our business in Southern California.
Yeah, we have the Olympics coming not too far off either.
Well, and I reference that, right? That it's, if that'll put people back to work and bring people together and all that kind of stuff, the Olympics are a good bit of medicine for that. So yeah, should I use my prop now? I might as well just do this now. So Sonya and I at H&K LA, and by the way, Sonya, Jeff is also former H&K in Dallas.
Yeah, so we're a big fraternity sorority hybrid.
That's right. We sat across the hall from each other in the LA office, and my my desk.
Oh no, I know the story.
I just thought this was hysterical, and it stuck with me. Your feet stuck out from the desk, right? She knows what I'm saying. And Sonia's office was kind of down a few feet from mine. So if she was just sitting at her desk working on her computer, she could see my feet, right? And it must have been, maybe it was a Friday, because Fridays tend to be more casual, and I wasn't wearing socks, okay? Which is still a habit of mine. Now I'm dressed up I've got to go teach after this. So I am dressed and I am wearing socks. And as opposed to Los Angeles, where people don't wear socks half the time, it's kind of a beachy thing. Everybody wears socks here, right? Anyway, so I was sitting at my desk working, and I took my shoes off. And I don't even think I did it consciously. I was just working away on a press release. And a few minutes later, all of a sudden, Sonya says, to no one in particular, because there's a bunch of offices right there. She kind of, to no one in particular, says, "What stinks?"
I'm so sorry.
And
I can't believe you remember that.
Oh yeah. And I immediately thought she must be talking about my feet. And I yanked my feet back in, and she could see me do that. And she was howling with laughter.
That's so
and
fun.
So Sonya, first of all, you're hysterical. Secondly, Here are the same pair of shoes
Oh my
Oh
God.
God.
Oh my God. I remember watching you because I
that I
saw you slip your shoes off, and I was like, I love a good practical joke. And like I could see that you hadn't noticed, but I cannot believe you still have those shoes. I'm
now,
so sorry. I apologize, John.
I'm 100% sure this is the same pair. I don't really wear them anymore because I have a newer pair, but for some reason I still have them. Here they
Oh,
but
so
yeah.
funny. That
Anyway,
is hilarious.
the
Thank
wit
Tassel loafers never go out of style,
the
John.
wit and wisdom of Sonya Grigoruk. There it is right there.
My warped sense of humor.
I love it. I love it. Melanie Gonzalez, my ex-colleague from Unisys, fellow Dallas resident. Over to you.
Well, first of all, how do I top that? And not to be rude, but the whole time I was thinking about the intersection of it being your birthday and how old those shoes were. And I was like, what a relic. Like, we should put those under a glass case in a museum or something. So,
Yeah,
not
well,
you, your shoes, John. You're not
relic,
the relic.
a relic shoes for a relic. Although I did not say we were only 33, Jeff. Yeah.
That's
You did.
correct. So, those
You did.
are brand new shoes. Anyway, that's hilarious. So yes, I'm in Dallas and worked with John back in the Unisys days. So yes, fun fact, I've pretty much been in technology throughout my whole career. Unisys, and then let's call it the HP, HPE, DXC family, because as you know, with
Yeah.
all of the tech companies, most of us tend to kind of rotate around. Like we've all either worked there or know someone who worked there. It's just kind of the way it goes in the tech world. So I come from that tech lineage, if you will. And then about a couple of years ago, opened up my own practice and working on business operations. So the same type of thing that we do, within the global orgs. I'm working on the systems, policies, frameworks, like all the things that actually make the engine go so that you all can do these really cool, flashy things that you're talking about, all these flashy campaigns. But behind it and behind the scenes are people actually making the motor run. And that's really the what I think the business operations are. So that's a little bit about what I have been doing.
Well, and you're just such a great partner to the marketing team, to the communications team.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just very seamless, very easy to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, and I think that's something I learned while I was working with the marketing and comms group, with y'all's group in particular, is the function is the same no matter where you go, no matter what organization or type of work you're working with from an operational side. But the way in which you partner needs to flex depending on who you're partnering with.
Yeah,
So the marketing, comms, PR folks, you are your own wonderful, glorious breed, right? And you're imaginative, you're creative. And I think what is unique to your space is being able to provide that structure to keep things moving, but make sure to never ever stifle that creativity
that's
or over engineer a process whenever you are like, hey, we're fighting fires. We've got a literal crisis on our hands,
mm,
or we're working on the quarterly numbers. Like these are the times where you do need a process just to keep things kind of in line, safety reasons, truthfully, to make sure that you're not doing anything that's going to backfire. But you have to be really careful in balancing those things. So, yeah, the partnership looks different to a certain degree, depending on who you're working with.
100%. Well,
Yeah.
you're both great to work with. Thank you again for joining us. And we're going to sign off now. No, I'm just kidding. We're going
That was it.
Easy.
Thank you, John,
to,
for
we are going to pass
giving my time.
Mr. Baum, who has some factoids in front of him, and he's going to start off the Q&A after that.
Yes, yes. Thank you, John. Yeah, you know what? It's amazing when you talk about women's history. Women make up, I think it's close to 51% of the world's population. And, without women, there wouldn't be any men. So that's why it baffles me that over the years, women have gotten like the short end of the stick with regard to business, with regard to voting, with regard to so many different things. And this is kind of devoted, this little podcast we're doing, to where women fit in and to where they want to go and where they need to go. So let me give you a few quick stats. And I'm I'm only 33, but I can't read it. Okay, so hey, women make up 44% of the global workforce right now, but they only hold 31% of vice president level roles and above. And that's from LinkedIn. It's a pretty good study. Um, but they're on a different path to leadership and it's gaining momentum. Women now own over 40% of all US businesses, employing 12.6 million people, generating 2.8 trillion in revenue, according to this is a report by Wells Fargo. Um, so those are huge numbers. And the women-owned businesses grew 12% from 2022 to 2025, which is nearly double the growth rate for businesses owned by men. So,
That
certainly the
can you actually repeat that? That's a great factoid.
yes, yes, I'll repeat it with some bravado here now. Um, yeah, the number of women-owned businesses grew 12% from 2022 to 2025, nearly double the growth rate for businesses owned by men.
I love it.
And that's a strong endorsement of some of the great things that women are doing right now. And what are their aspirations? I know you all have aspirations, and right now, ownership and autonomy, 75% of women say they want to be their own boss.
Mm.
Very understandable. Flexibility and control. 62% want more control over how and when they work. And then long-term assets. More than half of women aim to build a financial asset. So it's pretty powerful stuff. And the two guests we have just play right into that. So without further ado, John, I'm going to go ahead and ask a few questions. Is that all right?
Please.
Okay. So this is a really open-ended one. Yeah. Tell us about yourselves and your careers. I know you opened with that, but is there anything you'd like to add?
Um, just to jump in, our producer just dropped in a note there about, despite the fact that, there's some incredible growth in women starting their own businesses. And I think a lot of that has to do with, COVID just opening up this flexibility of, yes, I can do it on my own. I can work from home. And along with that, we can start our own businesses. And, I think women overall, we're still uh, take on the primary caregiver role, I'll say. So that goes very well with starting your own business. That gives you the flexibility. And, as a lot of us reach the, 20, 30-year peak in our career, we do want to have a lot of more control. But as your producer was pointing out, only 11% of CEOs are actually women, and that's from Fortune magazine. So I guess my question throughout my career that I've seen with in my own experience and along with others as well is, why aren't women really, despite PR and communications being a female dominated industry or career path, so many of the men in the leadership positions are still, male, not female. And one article that I read in Atlantic a few years ago that still resonates with me, and I think that still holds true across time, is that there's a confidence gap when it comes to women and men in the workplace. And there's the same study cited, men will look at a job description and only meet 60% of those qualifications, and they'll apply for it and they'll feel like they deserve that role, whereas women will hold themselves back and want to have want to meet that criteria of 100% before they put themselves out there. So we don't really tend to there is a confidence gap, and men tend to overestimate their confidence, if I can say that, while women tend to do the reverse.
I have a question.
Those are good points.
First of all, I think that's fascinating. When you say a confidence gap, do you mean that they're not as confident in themselves as men are, or if they don't have every box ticked in the job description, is the lack of confidence in the way they're going to be perceived or supported by others? You know,
The latter.
latter. Okay.
I'll say the latter. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not lack of confidence in themselves. It's, I'm wondering if I'm going to be accepted or supported because maybe I don't have all of this experience.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas a man will say, "Oh, I this 0.5% of this, I can meet 50% of this role. I'm going to go for it." Women will think, "Well, I really need to check each of those boxes before I put myself forward." Melanie, you're agreeing with me on this?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I think in my own mind, though, I wouldn't separate those out like a one or a two from the way John described them. Like to me, the reality is actually a hybrid of those things. I don't see those as two separate paths. So it's both that we may not feel like we have the confidence to go forward, maybe even potentially taking that negative feedback or that rejection even a little bit more, like letting that feedback and rejection kind of sink in a little bit more than maybe our male counterparts do, combined with also thinking we need to be even better than what they're asking for to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's one or two. I think they're the same things and just different ways to look at the same thing. The other thing I'll add, everything Sonya was saying, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And also, there's also a cultural lens when we think about this globally. When we look at us here in the US, like we all are here on this call, we are really evolving and changing where we have more men as primary people in the home or the primary parent. We have a lot of stay-at-home dads. That's very much something that we're doing here. But if you go outside of the US, women are
Sure.
still
Mm-hmm.
primarily all of those things. And also, they are the caregivers for the aging parents as well. So the issue gets compounded when you get outside of the US. And any of that, I'll call it progress that we're seeing here, we may not be seeing it as much in other countries, which is just devastating because we would want to see the women going for those VP, director, own their own companies and all of that, but they're just behind. Culturally, it's different.
No, that's a really great point.
That,
Particularly, look at the Middle East. There are countries where women have to cover their faces or cover their heads all the time, or restricted from being educated after a certain age. So, yeah, I think that we're a lot more evolved here in terms of how we treat women. But, there are a lot of places in the world that need to follow our lead. And, some of the most accomplished executives I've ever worked with are women, who, gosh, I've had a lot of women bosses over the years, and they've been
absolutely.
fantastic.
Oh yeah.
So if people can just recognize that.
Mhm. And I'll add one thing because Jeff, you talked a little bit about our experience, and I'd say, sorry, I'm kind of going a little off, like I'm kind of mumbling the questions together. But I think there's also this trade-off that we need to ask ourselves if we're willing to make. And I think that trade-off is occurring more now than it was in the past, which is even though a woman is able, does that mean she's willing when she herself wants to be the primary caregiver? Like it's not
Yeah,
that the world is saying,
Yeah.
you have to do this. It could be that innate desire. Like for me, my innate desire is I want to be the primary for my children, right? And so that in and of itself can be really limiting if you're reaching these other levels where you know that by going into it, the requirement is, oh, you're going to travel 25%. You need to be ready to go.
sure,
Or you need to be
sure.
ready to work 24-hour days when we have a crisis, like things like that. And we may say, no, it's just simply not worth it.
No, that certainly makes sense. John, I'll do the next one, but I'll turn over number three to you if that's okay.
Um, sure. I don't know what number three is.
I can help you with that.
No, no,
Um,
it's okay. It's challenging.
yeah, this question should kind of meld into what you said in the answer to the first one is what career-related challenges have you had to overcome as women?
Yeah.
And what career-related challenges do women face in general? And I think you've covered a lot of that, but you want to reiterate any points or take it in a little different direction? I leave that open to you guys.
Yeah, I'll just say a little bit more on that one. And I can only speak for me and what I've seen around me, but a big challenge can be caregiving whenever you become accountable for another human, whether that person is your child or a parent. Generally speaking, the woman is going to want to take a more active role in there. And it changes everything about how you've designed your life around work. Like it all just almost instantly changes. And that can be a big challenge because you change, your circumstances change, but the system around you, the company around you, the role around you does not change at the same time at all.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'd say that's one of the biggest challenges that I've experienced as a woman in the workplace for sure.
Yeah,
Sonia, you have any thoughts?
yeah, I can add to that. I don't know if it's unique to women, but along maybe with the caregiving role that Melanie's been speaking about is I think there's a certain one of the biggest challenges is stress and burnout, with just always being on. I mean, technology is a great asset, but it's also, we're never off. It's whether it's Slack or email or text or, phone calls or meetings. There's just more time to respond and react and less time to think and really strategize. So, and along with that comes the stress.
Definitely
Yeah.
agree. I can talk about an experience, and my experience as a dad pales with regard to what Lori, my wife, experienced as a mom. But I do remember staying up an entire night because one of our kids would not sleep.
Mhm.
And I had a really important meeting the next day, and I was going to be at a little table with the head of one of our divisions at a consumer products company I worked with. And my boss at that point was going to be there with me. And we sat down and we started the meeting, and about 5 minutes in, I fell asleep.
Yeah.
I mean, literally 3 feet away from the head of one of our divisions. And luckily, he's a good guy. My boss was a good person. She was a woman, and they had a good laugh about it. But that's the challenge when you're both a professional and a parent. It's so hard, and just because of your roles as mothers, that's a tremendous, tremendous responsibility and burden that I really think dads should take a bigger role. Um, and I've certainly tried, but I just can't replicate that. So anyway, that's my
I,
experience.
I worked at one .com agency, and I remember the woman was the founder of the company was a woman, and very driven, very smart, intelligent woman. But one of the stories about her before I got there, they had told me that when she was delivering, she had a fax machine put into the
Oh,
maternity
no.
ward, so she continued to work while she was giving birth. And
Oh
so,
my God.
yeah, so that's
That
one extreme. This is also the woman that I'm not naming any names, so I'm not outing anybody, but the story goes she was with the team in Chicago on a new business presentation, and she kind of an aggressive driver, very fast. And I guess they were running late to this new business pitch, and they were on the freeway and they missed their exit. And my friend, who was the account executive, was sitting next to her in the passenger seat and said, "Oh no, you missed the exit." She backed up on the freeway.
Oh my God.
So it's so there are some pretty interesting personalities out there, but yeah.
did you win
Good
the
Lord.
did
I
you
think they did. I think they did. Yeah. So it was worth it in the end. But
that
you can
that's
imagine.
Sonia, that story is just making me think about the importance, no matter male, female, gender, identity, our leaders and the people we see above us really set the tone for what is quote unquote acceptable
Yes.
and for ourselves and for the other leaders and the way that they're going to interact with their people as well. So, and whenever I think about what can all people do of any gender to support people in the workplace, it's model something that is a little model something that is not the fax machine in the delivery room, right? Like model that we also say I need to pick up my child or I need to go do this thing for my parent. I need to be the
yeah,
one that takes them to the doctor.
yeah,
Model that and then your people are going to naturally be like, "Oh, okay, I get to do that too." Like that is one of the biggest things we can do is just model the behavior that we want to see. And that's not a policy change. That's not
Yeah.
something we need permission for. It doesn't have to be approved. It's just you
right.
just do it and then other people feel empowered to do the same thing.
And I hope that's changing now. I think my era, like when I think about mentors, I did not really have too many female mentors in my career. In fact, I think one of my major mentors in my career was a gay man that I worked with who was, just wonderful. But I guess in the era that I grew up with, that was expected she was kind of, legend in our PR field because she did do that. And
Mhm.
in the era I grew up, it was sink or swim, frankly. If you didn't figure it out, you were not going to last in an agency.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. No doubt about that. Um, I've got one. And Jeff, this is not on our list, so I'm gonna
Okay.
I'm gonna go
Okay.
off the reservation a little bit. So, um, uh, Gelman, our producer, my older daughter. Hi, Gelman.
Hello, people.
Hi, Gelman.
So we were applying. We moved to Dallas when she was 3. from Southern California. And we were applying her to a private school for girls, which,
I love this story. It is so funny.
well, I don't think I'm not going to tell that one. But there were a lot of crazy things that went on that day when we went to visit. No, but in Los Angeles, in my experience, at least, maybe it's different now, the really, most well-known private schools didn't really start till middle school or high school. Here, they all start in lower school. So they start when you're 4. So you're trying to get these kids in you're applying when they're 3 years old, right? And then they start when they're 4. It's crazy. How do they know who's going to succeed in this school where they're going to be for the next 14 years? Apparently they do. But I remember when we took Gelman to that visit, and one of the first things they said was that they were trying to promote the value of all girls education, this all girls school. And they made the point, and I've never forgotten this, that the studies show that in a co-ed class, when the teacher throws out a question and boys and girls raise their hands to answer, boys get called on way more often than girls in the class. So what kind of an example is that setting of, in my mind, a very bad one?
Yeah.
The implication was they'll call on 3 or 4 boys, then they'll call on the girl, right? And so what is that teaching the girls at a very young age, depending on the age when that happens, right?
Or you're in a meeting, and you express a thought, an idea, suggestion, and it gets ignored, but the man next to you repeats the same thing, and suddenly all attention is on it. So that I've experienced that a number of times. It's I think it's an unconscious bias in some ways.
Well, I would agree. I mean, put it this way, I hope it's unconscious, right? Not that that's good. That's not good either. I would hope it's not conscious.
But it's reality,
I
unfortunately.
mean, that just, as a girl dad, I have a son as well. I'm not only a girl dad, but that is infuriating to me. That is infuriating.
Yeah, it's a lack of credibility. I'll give you another story. I did a study on the weight benefits of pistachios. And it was a small study. I managed to get it completed for under $30,000, just because I made a connection somewhere. It all came together, and it was a huge success. We were able to say, I think because people snacked on pistachios and shell, it slowed down their consumption. They ate less calories. They felt fuller longer, protein and fiber. It kind of helped differentiate, pistachios in this very crowded nut snack category. And the study, we used it for years in our PR and our media relations. We used it with all our global PR agencies. And I remember being in a meeting with the owner of the company, and kind of a gentleman of an older era, different era. And I presented my study and all the different results that I'd gotten from it and how great it was. I've gotten on, I think it was Dr. Oz, finally, one of the big hits back in the day. And so it was a huge success, but this particular person was very cynical, and he made a remark to me at the beginning of the meeting, and it was, there's only 2 people in the world I don't trust, and it's PR and real estate people. So maybe it wasn't because I was a woman, but there was some cynicism against advertising and PR people in general. And despite the fact that this person had a internal advertising agency and PR agency with at least a staff of 30 people. Anyways, so I presented my study, and I was very proud, and I got a little poo-pooed from it. And then about a month later, this person was an avid cyclist. My study showed up in Bicycling magazine, and it was the exact same study I'd shared with him. It got tagged. He sent it down from his office down to my boss with a note on, said, "Now that is great PR."
Of course he did.
They'll never forget that. So I mean, was the credibility because I'm a PR person? Is it because I'm a woman? Not really sure. But when that same result came through, a third, the trade publication that he was interested, or, the bicycling magazine that he was interested in, suddenly it was a great PR study.
It may be both.
Mm.
You're a PR person and a woman.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage, oh boy, I hope I'm not going to step in it here with this question. What percentage of, he said he doesn't trust PR people and residential real estate people?
Real estate and PR people.
Real estate. So what percentage of real estate people are women? I'm thinking it's a high percentage of women.
I think it's a high percentage too, based on what I see here in Plano, for sure.
So this guy his comment has red flags all over it. It really does. Yeah. Who is he? No,
I'll tell you later.
Yeah. Tell me later.
Hey, John, you mind if I throw in a tangent?
Oh,
no, I like a good tangent.
Okay, so we've been talking about all this, and something I heard, and I know it's true for sure, is that women reach emotional maturity in their late teens. Men don't reach emotional maturity until they're 26 or 27 years old.
I thought you were going to say ever.
Well, me, never. But, so that's so instructive. Why? Why is that? And why don't women get more credibility during the years where they definitely have a cognitive advantage over us? I don't know.
I haven't thought on that. People don't know. First of all, people don't know that unless they have done any research into how the brain forms and how that varies by gender. So they truly have no idea that that's what's happening. That's number one.
I think you're right. Although when you say it does make sense. Does make sense. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
Hopping in here super quick. That study has been updated. Emotional maturity, if you really think about it, doesn't happen for women until after for most people until after their frontal lobe has developed, which is about 25 to 26 for women. And that's actually extended further for men and some women, depending on hormones, into their 30s. So adulthood, it's just interesting. An interesting point is that we see adulthood as 18 when emotional maturity isn't achieved until at least 7 to 10 to 15 years later.
Wow.
So there you go.
It's just how the brain forms, like that part of the brain forms earlier for women.
No wonder the 20s are so hard. Right?
They are hard.
Hormones has something to do with it as well.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. They
Can I add one more comment real quick, just on one of the previous topics? So we were talking about the, kind of the unconscious bias that sits there whenever a man does something and they're sort of credited for that. And societally, what tends to happen is, in many cases, men are sort of coddled and given extra kudos for doing the basics. Like that's just something that we unconsciously do all the time. So yes, we're selecting the boy because he took the initiative and raised his hand. We are praising the dad because he babysat his child.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We're creating an entire account to, just to show off these great dads who are not even doing anything that spectacular, let's be honest. And that is just the way we operate. We give them cookies for all the things, right? And we all do it. Like no one is really immune from giving the extra cookies to the males for doing the basics. So I want to throw that out there.
It just doesn't seem fair.
It isn't fair. It isn't fair. It isn't fair we haven't had a female president. It isn't fair women didn't have the right to vote until 1920. None of this makes any sense.
None of it makes sense.
John, did you see the statistics that Gelman flashed on the bottom of our screen?
I didn't.
Gelman, do you want to just read those 3 things you posted up there? I thought it was really instructive.
Yeah, happy to do it. So just, active Googling while you're asking questions, what percentage of PR and real estate are women? According to National Association of Realtors, total realtors, approximately 62 to 66% are women, sales agents, 68%, brokers, 61%, and then PR specialists specifically, that's 64 to 77%. So I think you're actually onto something when you talk about combined bias, that there could be unconscious bias further than just PR, and real estate.
That
I
sure,
think that's fair.
it sure sounds like it. Okay, were there other factoids, or were you just gonna, was that
So
the,
those were the three that
That
I
was it. Continue.
so let's that's a good segue to marketing and communications. Um, I think Sonya and Melanie, you might already know this, but I not only do I run the agency with Jeff, but I also am on the faculty at UNT, University of North Texas, and I teach advertising. I'm an assistant professor of advertising and brand strategy. So, what are the classes I teach? Advertising, social media, integrated marketing, communication, stuff like that. I don't teach any PR classes. That's a separate track. I would say at least 2/3 of my students are women. At least. It might even be more than that. It might be 3/4. Um, I think that's a good thing, right? I'm thrilled with that. Is that, I mean, why is that? Why is it that what was that factor? 60, 65, 70% of
Yeah, it got up to
dark,
77%.
and it
Yeah.
doesn't sound like that number's going down anytime soon. Why is that? Why are women, why do so many women gravitate toward advertising, PR, communications? A, and B, why are they so darn good at it? What do you think?
That's all for Sonya, by the way. I don't
Well,
know.
I'd have to say for myself, I fell into PR. When I first, before I landed on PR as a career, I thought PR was a lot of socializing, going to parties and meeting people, and that frankly wasn't me. So I never really considered it. But when I got my degree in English literature, I just went for what I love to do, which was always reading and writing, frankly. And so for me, it just became like a natural, like I fell into the field because this is what I always loved to do. I love reading. I used to love getting all my magazines in the mail every month, and like finding out what was new and looking at different trends and what makes sense for people and what helps people live better lives is the reason why I got into it. And so I have to think maybe women are just more focused on communications, and we're still lagging in the other fields when it comes to like science and engineering and computer science. I mean, those fields are still very much dominated by men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. I can't think of a better explanation than that. I do know that technology companies are trying to get more women into the field, more women into STEM and stuff like that. And I do believe progress is being made, but they have a long way to go to catch up to market.
So I would kind of be interested to flip this around and hear from both Jeff and yourself, John, how you ended up in communications field.
That's a great question, Jeff.
Yeah, no, I'll take that. So I started off, I have a degree in journalism. And I think one of the first things that opened my eyes was the professor in one of my classes said, well, the salaries for beginning journalists are really low. And he was kind of going off on that. And if you go up to Alaska, it's really, really low and all this. And I thought, wow. So how could I take these skills and apply them elsewhere? And I thought, well, maybe political work. And my stepdad was a state senator in Pennsylvania. He got me interested, and one of my fraternity brothers' dad was a congressman. So I was able to get a job in Washington, and I was able to use those skills. A lot of that's persuading people. A lot of the things that are related to communications involve that. So that can be lobbying, that can be, any number of things. So that's how I kind of defaulted down to doing what I do. And I was lucky enough to be talented enough and have enough luck. They say that luck isn't a strategy. For me, I guess in retrospect, it kind of was. But that's how I got into it. And I just progressed from being a lobbyist to an internal communications head to being a media relations specialist to being like a financial communications specialist. So that's how I got there. What about you, John?
Well, I'm similar to Sonia. I just loved writing. That's really what started it for me. only thing I ever wanted to do growing up is to be a journalist. And who was my mentor? I didn't have a journalist mentor in my personal life, but my mentor was Robert Redford in All the President's Men.
There you go.
That's a good one.
He was my role model. That role. I saw that movie and I was done. This is what I was 13 when that came out. So this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I majored in journalism in college and started my career as a journalist, and then morphed into PR from there, and then into other pieces of marketing and communications. But yeah, it was started with wanting to be a journalist, becoming one, but just being a news junkie, right? Mm. So when I went into Sonya, when I morphed into PR, it was I had come to realize that I had a bit of a business person in me. But I still wanted to be involved in the news because I was and remain today a news junkie. And so PR is a perfect way to do that, right? So yeah, that's kind of how it started for me.
So it's interesting. So men tend to come in through the journalism door and women tend to go in through the PR.
That's interesting.
And we meet in
It is.
That is really interesting. I wonder if we chased down a study on that. I wonder what we'd find out. We'd probably validate what you just said. I have a final question. And it's also semi-open-ended, but not totally. I would love to hear from either of you, both of you. I referenced my students. Here they are. They're 20 years old. They're learning all this stuff. And what would your piece of advice or pieces of advice be to college kids, people who are preparing to get into the workforce? And Melanie, it doesn't have to be in marketing. It could be anything. It could be just you're going to graduate from college in a year. You're going to go into the workforce. What advice might you have for them, especially as young women?
This is easy because I have a stepdaughter in college. And so I'm going to tell you the same thing I actually choose to tell her, which is do something you actually like. Don't just do the thing that everybody's telling you need to do. Don't just do the thing that it's like, oh, well, they say it starts at this much money getting out of college, because you have to love it. And when you love it, you're able to overcome pretty much anything that gets put in your way. Because all of us are going to have struggles, whether you're women or not. We all have struggles. And to get through it and to get past it, you have to have this like innate love and sort of innate desire to do the thing that you're trying to do. That is the superpower. So the first decision goes with what is the thing that I love, not just what is the thing that everybody's telling me to do, and go with it and have confidence in doing it.
And I'll
add one more thing. Can I add one more thing to that?
Of course.
And this probably might apply more for young women, just knowing that permission is there to completely change your mind. Whatever you choose right now is not forever. This is just step one. So giving some idea that your career is actually going to be made up of these segments, these moments, these eras. I always call them eras, also because I'm a Taylor Swift fan. Eras, but your career is actually made up of all these eras. So what you're really deciding is what is your first one? What is your album number one? You're not deciding what your discography is. So that I think helps take a little pressure off.
I think that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, it's a really great answer.
The notion of choose something, even if it's, again, just for era one, if you will. Choose something you really like, want to do. Do you think that's more, this might be a leading question. Do you think—
You can ask it as a leading question.
Do you think that's even more important for young women? And the reason I'm thinking maybe it is a leading question is I'm just sitting here digesting it in my mind. They're going to run into challenges as they go, not all of which will be presented to young men. So you better like what you're doing, right? Because you're going to have to maybe work harder to make it work. I don't know.
I totally disagree. And so that's where, I have a lot of unpopular opinions. This is probably one of them. I actually don't think that women technically have it harder than men in different ways. We have different struggles. The struggles look completely different depending on what your gender identity is. We all have these struggles. They're all going to face them. It's going to look different. And so it is just as important for all young people to choose the thing they love, not just for women. That is my personal stance on it. Also based on also facts and experience.
Okay, so young women don't necessarily have more challenges ahead of them, just different ones.
I mean, systemically speaking, yes, there are also barriers. It depends on the intersection of the identities that that person has. So there is an inherent disempowerment from the system that is involved with being a female. Yes, that is true. But I don't think it's fair to say that men don't also have their own. They're just different. And when we talk about things systemically, yes, that's one good way to look at it, but it's also like I'm a person giving guidance to one human sitting in front of me. Like I'm just using the example you gave, John. So I'm a person giving feedback to this one human, this one young person I can influence. That
Mm-hmm.
person's going to have their barriers, their challenges. We don't know what they are. They don't even know what they are. And they're going to probably struggle their butts off, regardless of who and what identity is sitting in front of me in that moment. They're going to have a lot of struggles. So I think the answer looks a little different, at this like macro identity scale versus I'm trying to have a conversation with a human sitting in front of me.
I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
There are no unpopular opinions on the offense.
Good.
Oh, yes, there are. John's opinions are very unpopular.
Well, that's true. That's true. Other than that.
That your shoe is a relic? Is that an unpopular opinion here on the podcast?
Exactly.
Is it? I don't
Exactly.
know.
Yes. There's my shoe.
Can I add that before we wrap up? I second completely what Melanie said. When you love what you do, it's not work. It's, you'll do it forever. But I would just add financial independence. Work towards, pay yourself first, plan for your future so that, at any given time you are in control of your own destiny and you're not beholden to anyone.
I think that's a great point.
Can't
That's a
argue
great
with that.
point, because we want to be like that too.
Right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to offer? Anything else you'd like to say relative to women in business, Women's History Month? Anything you'd like to close with, either of you?
I would have loved to have heard more about your side with working with women. So, like, who in your career path comes to mind when you think about powerful women in public relations or communications or in the industry?
Well, like Jeff, I've also had many female bosses, and I probably don't want to use the names either, but I mean, to a person, as I think of them now, they've all been very strong and capable, and also very empathetic, which I always liked, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can assign that to them being women more than men. I don't know. I don't know enough about that. But I have found that these are multi-skilled people. There's nothing they can't do. And also to the point earlier about, also being the caregiver, all of these women that I'm thinking about were also the caregivers. Not the only caregivers, but they were in the middle of it. They were busy, committed to their work. They did not have the fax machine in the delivery room, but they were committed to their families too. They had figured it out. They had figured out a way to somehow make it all work. And I was always very impressed by that. And in general, maybe this isn't fair to men, I don't know, but in general, the people I'm thinking of had more going on in their lives than the average man that I was working for. The man needed to take a business trip.
Yeah.
They went on the business trip and they had fewer other things to juggle.
That's right. That's right.
And that's not the man's thing to apologize for on one hand. I mean, you got to go on a business trip, you got to, right? But it's always seemed a little easier for the man to me.
Mm.
Had fewer other things going on.
Right.
And honestly, I'm probably as guilty of that as anyone. If I have to go on a business trip, I have to go. I'm not really asking permission. I am a little, but it's more like, hey, I gotta go to New York. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. Is that okay? But I kind of have to do it, right? So I'm probably as guilty as anybody, right? But I've had not all of the bosses I've had, men or women, have been great, but most of them have been really good. And I think I've worked for more women than I have men.
Mm.
And I've never had an issue with that. Always been perfectly comfortable.
Good to hear.
I share a lot of what John just said, with regard to the women I've worked for. The one who shaped me most was probably when I worked way back in pharmaceutical and consumer products. And I had been in government affairs, and she offered me a job where I had to move to New Jersey. God give me strength. Um, and that was the internal communications job. And I was very intimidated by her at first because she had that kind of brash New York City style to her. I thought, wow, she's gonna just beat the crap out of me all the time. And I got up there and I found her to be so supportive. And when John talked about empathy, yeah, but she also held you accountable. And she would not be afraid to color outside the box, which I think really had an impact on me and really set me to the point where I could color outside the box too, which I think really helped me further my career. But she was incredibly competent, and we had a little team, and that team became like a family at work, which was a great thing to have. And anytime you felt you needed support, they were there. Anytime you screwed up, you knew it. But at the same time, you had a good role model, and I think that influenced me a lot. And at that point, I don't know how old. I wasn't very old. I was probably, 30 or 31, but she had a huge impact on me.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I've been very fortunate with most of my bosses, but again, most of them have been women.
Hmm.
Um, I I hope I'm a better man for that, right? I hope.
You're a good man, John.
Hope I'm a better person for that. I think I probably am.
Good
So
to hear.
do you have other questions? I mean,
We
Sonia.
better wrap up pretty soon because
Daddy,
we're
we
getting the
really
signal
have to
from.
wrap up. I love this conversation
Okay.
so much right now. I wish we could go on for another 30,
Oh, yeah.
but we really
yeah.
got to go.
Okay. Yeah. No, Sonia, I really like that question. So listen, thank you both so much. I'm glad we have Women's History Month in general, but I'm glad that we took a moment to celebrate two really, again, smart, capable, and accomplished women in our lives, in our network. I would work for either of you in a minute. I would work with either of you again in a minute. You're both so smart. We're so proud to have you guys as partners in our network, and we thank you for taking the time today. And I think this is going to be some good content when we're ready to post it. Jeff, any
No, I
want to?
just have to say, John, I second the motion on all of that. I think, we have two very accomplished professionals here who are great to work with and would definitely pass that beer test we have with regard to the folks we work with as freelancers in our network. If we don't want to have a beer with you, that has a huge impact on whether we will accept you
I,
into
I think we've
Come on
our.
already
down this
passed
way. I'll buy a
I think
beer.
we've already passed the beer test. Like,
Oh,
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure, but it was more of like a whiskey test, but like,
Oh,
Yeah,
I
there you
think it
go.
had the
Oh,
same
a little
tip.
shot of
Yeah.
bourbon.
I
yeah.
like that.
I
Beer,
prefer tequila, but that's
beer,
okay.
beer is a generic descriptor for all things libation,
Yes, all things libation.
right?
No, what I'd say to wrap up is thanks all of you for joining us. That's why we keep on doing these podcasts, and we will keep on doing these podcasts. go and see our new website, which we're really proud of. I think it's really an improvement, but also kind of an evolution of what we do. And also visit us on all the social channels. We're on every one. Um, so, just be there, like us,
Will do.
hire us.
Like you already.
But thank you. And thank you again, Sonia and Melanie. It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure and an honor to have you on our show.
It was fun. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for thinking of us.
You got it, guys. All the
Come
best,
down to LA. I'll buy you guys a beer or a whiskey.
or both,
Absolutely.
or
There you
both.
go. Even
That would
better.
be known as a Boilermaker, John.
That's right. Oh my
From my
God.
hometown of Pittsburgh, the steelworkers.
I
They'd have a
remember.
shot and a beer. Boilermaker.
The answer is yes.
You had me at yes.
The answer is yes. Thanks a lot, guys. See y'all
Thank
later.
you.
All right.
It was
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.